Okay, this is a derivative of or sideline conversation to the mutiny against, or conspiracy, I think I call it the conspiracy against big. And I'm referring to big just about everything. Big organizations, big thinking, big ideas, big anything. Our species, humans, conspire against and don't very much like anything big because it makes them feel small. And I want to talk just a little bit about big thinking, why it's so difficult to become a big thinker, what the roadblocks are to thinking big. I started this path along the lines of thinking bigger than before many decades ago when I read The Magic of Thinking Big, Magic of Thinking Big. And that changed my attitude towards my thinking, and it also changed the size of my thinking because I took the book to heart and said, okay, that's logical to me. It makes sense to me that I should be thinking big, not small. And I've been thinking bigger and bigger ever since. And if you read the book Magic of Thinking Big more than once over the last 40 years and you've kind of applied it, well, your thinking gets kind of monstrous and you become a monster and people see you as some mutant from outer space. They don't feel comfortable around you and they don't like your words. Your words are too big for them and that makes them feel small. Simply by perspective or by relativity, relatively speaking, your words are too big and their words or their thoughts are too small and therefore you're not like them. Humans like to be alike. They like to be in the same clique. They like to be in the same pack. And when you think big, you end up leaving the pack because most people don't think big. They don't think at all. And when you don't think very much, then your thinking gets even smaller because it's just the way thinking happens. Thinking is from your brain, and your brain it functions very much like a muscle. If you don't use it, it's going to shrink. And when your muscles shrink, so does the thought process. It shrinks. If you have a smaller brain, if it's contracted because you don't use it, because it's a muscle and you haven't exercised it, whether it's because you have really, really smart devices plugged into the side of your head or strapped to your waist or everywhere in your house that you bought from Goodwill for 10 bucks that are smarter than you, well, your brain is going to shrink. And if you let it continue to do that because you just don't like thinking very much, it kind of becomes a cyclical process that spirals downhill. The less you think, the easier it is to think even less. And the less you think, the smaller you think. And then you can't solve any problem. You don't even know what day it is. You don't remember your own birthday. You almost become like a Alzheimer's patient or somebody who has what we refer to in the psychological world as dementia. And that simply means your brain isn't functioning the way it's supposed to. What we've done with our devices and with our labor saving and with our TVs and remotes and radios and televisions and game devices and hip devices and recording devices and microwave ovens and refrigerators that even reorder your food for you because they scan the codes on the packaging and tell you, even throw it out for you. You don't even get to pick up the bad fruit and throw it away. The refrigerator does that for you. Well, your brain shrinks and thinks smaller, and humans are thinking smaller every single hour of every single day. They think a little bit smaller because the devices get a little bit smarter and there are more of them. They're everywhere and you can't really get away from them very easily. You have to work at getting away from them. That's what all of these clubs are and things that you can go on vacation, to take vacations away from the devices that are making you stupid. They're making you stupid by having you think smaller and smaller and smaller, and then you don't think at all, and then you're in trouble because you can't function in a world that's extremely competitive with 7 billion people all connected to the internet, all in the same marketplace. 3 billion people are connected to the internet, and anybody who's anybody already speaks English. That means that you need to be thinking rather than pressing buttons on a remote in front of a TV set for 80 hours a week. That's going to get you financially extinct because you're not thinking about economics, you're not thinking about supply and demand, you're not thinking about solving other people's problems so that you can make some money. You're just not thinking at all. And big think is how you turn that around. You can't think from zero to multi-billionaire overnight. That doesn't work either. You have to think incrementally in slightly smaller steps, which turns it all around. It's kind of like if you stop smoking and your body returns to normal after about 5 or 10 years. It's almost as if you didn't smoke at all, even if you smoked for 20 years. Even if you didn't think for 20 or 30 years and you start to think for a change, and you start to read for the first time since you were, 8, and you start to make notes and do some writing for the first time since you were, 5 or 6, well, then your brain starts to develop some mass and it starts to get stronger. And it makes it more fun to think when you actually think about something and good things happen. You make a sale, or you meet somebody and they didn't run away when you opened your mouth because you said some good words, because you started to think again for the first time in a long time. And you can build on that. All skills are built atop previous skills that you did an hour ago, or a day ago, or a month ago. You can't become a big thinker overnight. You have to chip away at it little by little. You have to form the habit of thinking a little bit bigger all the time, becoming a better version, a better instance of yourself tomorrow than you were today. And if you get in that habit, you can form that habit. It's not that easy. It's very easy to just sit there on the couch and flip the remote again one more day. But if you get in the habit of getting up off the couch and getting out of the house and going and doing things with your body, that's how you start thinking, is you have to move your body in order to think bigger. If you don't move your body, your brain's going to follow right along with your body not moving, and your brain's not going to move and you're not going to think. So you have to move the body in order to get the oxygen to the brain so it starts thinking. And then it says, this is kind of cool, I feel better, I'm going to think some more. And guess what happens when you think? You burn calories, so you lose weight. That's a good thing too. Not so that you become an anorexic, but you need to move in order to get the oxygen to your brain, in order to think, in order to lose more weight and say, I'm going to do some more of this. This makes me feel better. This gives me endorphins and oxytocin and serotonin and all of those fun dopamine things that your brain makes when you start to move again for the first time. And you start to think again for a long time. After a long time of not thinking, your brain starts to recover. It will recover. But you have to make the decision that you're going to think again, and you're going to move. You have to move in order to think. They're related. They're impossibly, you can't separate them. You can't think without moving. You can't do it. Never going to happen. You have to move in order to think. That's what your brain is doing when it's thinking. It's moving. It's moving stuff around at a at a pace that you can't even imagine. And you can measure how fast you're moving. You can even buy a little thing that put on your ankle or your wrist, and it'll tell you how fast you're moving. You can't measure, you can't even grasp how fast the stuff in your brain is moving when it's getting the oxygen and when you make the decision to think. So you want to think big, and big think makes it so much easier than little think. Little think is what everyone else is doing, and big think is what no one else is doing. And when you do something that no one else is doing, you make a whole bunch of money doing it. It's kind of straightforward. It's just a straight, hard, black line between big think and big money. It's the same thing. And the reason people don't make big money is because they don't think big. Big think is hard. Big think sends you out of the pack and sends you packing, and your mom doesn't like you anymore, and your best friend from high school doesn't like you anymore, and your neighbor thinks you're nuts, and everybody thinks you're nuts because you're not thinking like them. You're not part of the pack anymore. And you have to be prepared to pay that price, otherwise you're not going to think big. You're going to go right back to the bar, complaining about the president, complaining about taxes, complaining about getting a 2-cent raise this year. That's what small thinking does for you.